Welcome to lecture number 2 on magnetism and matter. Myself Balgopal Mahapatra of Bodh Panchayat College, Bodh, lecturer in physics. Today we will discuss the different aspects in connection with magnetism and matter. The second part we will take up. As we have discussed in your last class what is the magnetic field due to a magnetic dipole. We had found what are different expression, what is magnetic field intensity due to an axial point or at an equatorial point. Today we will discuss what is the torque and work done on a magnetic dipole to begin with. When a magnetic dipole or a magnet, bar magnet you may say, it is placed in a uniform magnetic field. You see uniform magnetic field, it is represented by lines of force like this which are parallel and equispaced, and if this is you see a bar magnet, when it is inclined at a particular angle theta with the field, the bar magnet it is inclined at an angle theta. Here theta is the angle between your lines of force and the magnetic moment vector. The spacing between the two poles, north pole, this is you see north pole, and the south pole, it is nothing but 2L. Distance between north pole and south pole, north pole to south pole, this distance is 2L, and angle theta, this is the angle theta between your magnetic moment vector and lines of force. So we know magnetic field strength at any point, it is nothing but the force experienced by a unit north pole placed at this point. If pole strength is small m, so what will be the force exerted on each of this dipole? If pole strength is small m, force experienced on north pole as well as south pole, as is clear from the figure, it is nothing but mb. So this mb acting on the north pole and south pole, you see how they are acting. So the forces of magnitude mb act opposite to each other, and hence net force acting on the dipole, it will be nothing but 0. The net force acting on the dipole will be nothing but 0 because this mb and this mb are not in the same direction, but their lines of action are different. So due as no net force is acting on them, we may say there is no linear motion, there is no translatory motion, there is no translational motion of the magnet, but as their lines of action are different, these two mb, it will constitute a couple and tend to rotate the magnet in the clockwise direction. So we may say the mb combination, it will constitute a couple, and moment of the couple, you know, it is called as torque. So a magnetic dipole or a magnet when placed in a uniform magnetic field, it will constitute a torque. गोटे यूनिफॉर्म मैग्नेटिक फील्ड रे जदि आमे मैग्नेट टाकू प्लेस करिबा, जेहेतु एमबी लाइन ऑफ एक्शन अलग अलग हो गला, सेमाने गोटे टॉर्क एक्सपीरियंस करिवे. क्लियर? सो व्हाट विल बी दैट टॉर्क? तमे जानिचो जे टॉर्क होची प्रोडक्ट ऑफ force into perpendicular distance. As you know, torque is given by product of force and perpendicular distance between them. And here you see there is a right angle triangle here. NS is the diagonal, and from the right angle triangle, if you find out what is sin theta from this triangle, and you can find perpendicular distance between MB and MB, it will be 2L cos theta. Perpendicular distance between MB and MB is 2L cos theta, 12 being the length. So torque T acting on the dipole will be a small mb into 2L sin theta. But you know, small m into 2L, it is nothing but magnetic dipole moment. Small m into 2L is nothing but magnetic dipole moment. So small m and 2L, therefore we may say this small m and 2l as the magnetic moment vector. It is the magnetic moment vector capital M. Small m into 2l, it is magnetic moment vector capital M. Therefore, torque is given by mb sin theta, and vectorially vector t will be equal to vector m into vector b, as is clear in figure 2. You see theta is the angle between vector m and vector b, and torque will be perpendicular to the plane containing m and b as per your cross product rule, which is clear. So you can know what is the direction of this torque. So torque, it is given by the rules of cross product. Its direction of torque is given by the rules of cross product, and direction of torque is definitely perpendicular to the plane containing m and b. So in this way we can find out. Also we may be asked problem, theta may be given, m may be given, b may be given. We have to calculate what is the torque, or sometimes it may so happens that t will be given, m is given, b is given, and calculate the angle of inclination theta with the field. Now let us calculate what is the work done on a magnetic dipole placed in a uniform magnetic field. Suppose this is the magnetic dipole, as is clear in the figure. You see it is inclined at a particular angle. Okay, so if the dipole is rotated, here you see from angle theta 1 to theta 2, you see how it was rotated. Initial position was represented by this dotted line. It was inclined at an angle of theta 1 with the direction of the field. Now it shows the second position after rotation theta 2 due to the couple constituted by the two forces mb and mb. So if it is rotated theta 2 minus theta 1, let us say it is d theta. If it is rotated through d theta, then definitely work has been done due to this angular displacement, and this work done, if it is dw, it will be given by t into d theta, torque into angular displacement. But already we have seen ebe torque kete ame calculation करथिले ना mb sin theta, ताकू substitute करा जाऊ. So let us substitute t, that is mb sin theta, and d theta, so that dw will be equal to mb sin theta d theta. So to rotate the magnet through angle d theta, work has been done. For the small rotation, small work has been done. So what will be the total work done if it will be rotated through angle theta 1 and theta 2? So you have to integrate. So total work done W will be integration over mb sin theta d theta from theta 1 to theta 2. After integration, its value will be mb sin theta, lower limit will be theta 1, upper limit will be theta 2. Substitute that. So W will be equal to mb cos theta from theta 1 to theta 2. If you substitute that value, total work done will be mb cos theta 1 minus theta 2. And this work done is on the dipole. It is stored on the dipole as potential energy. Suppose potential energy is arbitrarily taken 0 when the dipole is perpendicular to the direction of the field. Then potential energy in rotating the dipole inclined at an angle theta can be calculated by putting theta 1 to be equal to 0 and theta 2 will be equal to theta. And theta 1 0 means cos 0, it is 1. Theta 2 theta means cos theta 2, in place of cos theta 2 you have to write cos theta. Kintu negative sign achi seti, negative sign is there. So your potential energy will be minus mb cos theta. This work done will be stored in that potential energy, that is minus mb cos theta. But always you remember, potential energy can be taken 0 at the arbitrarily at the ground position. Potential energy can be taken as arbitrarily 0 at any position of the dipole. Now after going through this, let us discuss what is terrestrial magnetism. terrestrial magnetism means it is the magnetism of Earth. It is the magnetism of Earth. Earth possesses the property of magnetism. Earth behaves like a huge magnet. It is evident from the fact that when a magnet is freely suspended at any place on the earth, it always points in a particular direction, that is nearly geographic north south direction. जदि गोटे मैग्नेट को तुम झुलई देव से मैग्नेट किसी समय पर रेस्ट पोजिशन को फेरी आसब एवं से रेस्ट पोजिशन ने मैग्नेट रो नॉर्थ पोल अर्थ रो नॉर्थ आड़ को जाइए रेस्ट को आसब मैग्नेट रो साउथ पोल अर्थ रो साउथ आड़ को जाइए रेस्ट को आसब दैट इज टू मीन्स that the magnet will come to rest with its north pointing geographic north and south pointing geographic south. It indicates that the suspended magnet is definitely, certainly under the influence of a magnetic field whose lines of force are nearly parallel to the geographic north and south. Definitely, direction of magnetic field of the magnet and that of the magnetic field of the earth are parallel. So that magnetic field due to Earth's magnetism is influencing the magnet to come to rest with a particular direction. And magnetic intensity at any point on the surface of the earth can be imagined, can be explained, can be clearly analyzed if we assume an imaginary magnet at the center of the earth to be situated in such a way that its axis makes an angle of approximately 17 degree, 17 degree with geographic axis as is calculated. So one thing here comes to our mind, what is geographic axis, that we will discuss. And the south pole of the imaginary magnet that will lie in the northern hemisphere near geographic north when the magnetic north means when the north pole of the magnet lies in the southern hemisphere near the geographic north south. Actually all these are imaginary concept. Actually there is no such magnet which can exist at the center of the earth. Actually the center of the earth is so hot that it is not possible for magnetism to exist. But different theories are there which can explain why earth has magnetism or what is the reason of terrestrial magnetism. One such explanation is due to Dr. William Gilbert, according to which the magnetism of earth is due to a spherical shell of magnetite present in the earth's crust. Earth's crust रे गोटे magnetite अच्छी जोटा गोटे magnetic material ता पाई earth ता magnet भलिया behave करुची. Earth is behaving like a magnet due to magnetite present on the earth's crust. This is one view. Another argument regarding magnetism of earth is that it is due to magnetic field of sun. Magnetism of earth is due to magnetic field of sun, and generally there is a coincidence of magnetic storms on earth with the 11-year sun's spot. It indicates there is a link between earth's magnetism and sun's magnetism, you may say. The other argument is that magnetism of earth can be due to rotation of ferromagnetic material which is contained within earth and rotating along with the earth. There is also another view that due to a number of reasons charged particles are moving in the atmosphere of earth, and when charged particles are moving it is equivalent to flow of current, and as per rules of magnetic effect of current, around any current carrying conductor a magnetic field is associated. So that magnetic field associated with the motion of the charged particle, it may be the region of terrestrial magnetism or magnetism of earth. So these are different views regarding earth's magnetism. Now what is geographic axis? Geographic axis is nothing but a straight line passing through the geographic poles of earth. It is the axis of rotation of the earth and it is also called polar axis. Now what is geographic meridian? at any place on the earth, if you imagine a vertical plane passing through the geographic north-south, it will be called as geographic meridian. Geographic meridian is defined as a vertical plane passing through the geographic north-south of earth. Vertical plane means it is perpendicular to the geographic north-south line. Now, what is geographic equator? Geographic equator, it is a great circle on the surface of the earth in a plane which will be perpendicular to the geographic axis, and all the points on the geographic equator are at equal distances from the geographic poles. Now, let us talk about magnetic axis. Partially we have discussed. It is a straight line passing through the magnetic poles of the earth. It is a straight line passing through north pole and south pole of the earth, which is generally making an angle of 17 degree. You may say magnetic axis and geographic axis are inclined to each other at an angle of 17 degree. Now, what is magnetic meridian? Magnetic meridian at any place, it is defined as a vertical plane passing through the magnetic north-south of the earth. So, magnetic meridian, it is a plane perpendicular to the magnetic axis again. Then magnetic equator, it is just like your geographic equator. It is definitely a great circle on the surface of earth that should lie in a plane vertical or perpendicular, or you may say transverse to the magnetic axis. And all the points on the magnetic equator are at equal distances from the magnetic poles. Hence the name equator. It justifies the name equator. Why it is called equator? Reason is that all the points on the magnetic equator are at equal distances from the magnetic poles. Now, magnetism of earth can be completely explained with the help of some terms which are called as magnetic elements. So, to have complete information regarding nature, direction and magnitude of magnetic field of earth, the quantities, mainly three quantities like declination, inclination and horizontal component of earth's magnetic field are required. To begin with, what is declination theta? Let us see, let this be marked in yellow color, this one, it is geographic meridian, okay, and here this is your magnetic meridian, and both are inclined at a particular angle theta. So, that angle theta between magnetic meridian and geographic meridian at a particular place, it is called declination or magnetic declination at that place. This is first magnetic element, and generally this theta varies from one place to another place, and lines shown on a map particularly through the places that have the same declination, these are called isogonic lines. So, in a particular map, when we are drawing a map, different lines are drawn. One is called isogonic line, the other is agonic line. What is a isogonic line? Isogonic lines are defined as lines on the map passing through places having same declination, whereas the lines passing through places having zero declination, these are called agonic lines. These are called agonic lines. Now, second magnetic element is magnetic dip or magnetic inclination. Generally, angle of inclination or magnetic dip that we have told here, it is the angle del. It is represented by del as shown in the figure clearly. You see the angle between the red line and the blue line, it is angle of dip, and here we may say horizontal component. Earth has a magnetic field, it will have two components. Horizontal component is BH, vertical component is BV, the resultant is B. Resultant magnetic field of earth is B. So the angle between that resultant magnetic field of Earth and the horizontal component, it is called dip. Again, to repeat, dip at a place is defined as the angle between the horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field and the resultant magnetic field of Earth at that particular place. And generally, del varies from equator to poles. Declination has a value of 0 at equator and 90 degree at poles. So we may say angle of inclination changes from place to place on the earth. Without any doubt, you may definitely reach at this particular conclusion that at poles its value is 90 degree, that is minimum, and at equator it is maximum, that is 0. Very often you will get this question as multi-choice type question in different types of examination. And here, in connection with this inclination, there are some lines drawn on a map which are called isoclinic lines, or you may say aclinic lines. And isoclinic lines are the lines drawn up on a map through places which should have same dip, okay, which should have same inclination. But the lines which are connecting the places having 0 dip, these are called as aclinic lines. These are called as aclinic lines. And here you next magnetic element that we will are talking about, it is horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field. Clearly that horizontal component is BH here, and it is the component of total intensity of Earth's magnetic field along a particular magnet or along a horizontal line in the magnetic meridian. You may say horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field is the component of total intensity B of Earth's magnetic field along a horizontal line in the magnetic meridian. So its value from the figure, the horizontal component BH will be B cos del and the vertical component BV will be B sin del. From the again back to the figure here, you see BH from this particular figure, you may calculate BH from the right angle triangle, BV from the right angle triangle, and value of resultant B as per parallelogram law of vector addition, it is square root of BH square plus BV square. Okay, BH is B cos del, BV equal to B sin del. You take the square of these two, so BH square plus BV square, it will be equal to B square, and resultant will be B, which is square root of BH square plus BV square. So this is all about magnetic element of Earth. Now in connection with this, we will discuss a particular law which is generally called as tangent law. What generally happens, if you take a magnetic needle, small needle as shown in the figure, and you suspend it in a region, that region it is generally acted upon by two uniform magnetic field which are perpendicular to each other, say. Okay, then what will happen, the needle will align itself along the direction of the resultant of the two fields aligned at an angle of theta, such that the tangent of the angle is the ratio of the two fields. You see in the figure how the needle is inclined at an angle theta, B, max angle theta with B1, and this is B2, such that if it satisfies the condition tan theta equal to B2 by B1, then we may say this magnetic needle, it is in equilibrium. This magnetic needle will be in equilibrium. This is called tangent law. So tangent law states that if a magnetic needle is under the action of two uniform magnetic fields perpendicular to each other and it makes an angle theta with one of the field B1, say, then tangent of that angle theta is the ratio of B2 to B1. This is tangent law. If you say the angle of inclination theta will be 45 degree, you know tan 45 degree is 1, then definitely B2 by B1 equal to 1. So B2 equal to B1. So the field strengths will be equal. In other words, if B2 equal to B1, then tan theta equal to 1, means theta equal to 45 degree, means B is inclined with B1 with by 45 degree and that with B2 by 45 degree. It is equally inclined. So our conclusion is that when a magnet is subjected to two uniform fields of equal strength which are perpendicular to each other, then that magnet is in equilibrium making equal angles, that is 45 degree with both of these fields, right? B1 and B2 are two fields here. Now in this particular case we will see there are some magnetic material. Already we have discussed magnetic material or substances are those which are affected by magnetic field. So a substance which is affected by a magnetic field, it is called magnetic substances, and magnetic substances are of three types: diamagnetic substances, paramagnetic substances, ferromagnetic substances. Let us discuss its properties, distinguishing properties. Let us make a comparative study. To begin with, what is a diamagnetic substances? Diamagnetic substances are those which are repelled by magnets, which are feebly or certainly we may say repelled by magnets. Examples are antimony, bismuth, copper, gold, silver, quartz, mercury, alcohol, water, hydrogen, air, argon, etc. But paramagnetic substances are those which are weakly, not so strongly, less strongly, weakly, we may say feebly attracted by magnets, like your aluminum, chromium, alkali and alkaline earth metals, platinum, oxygen, etc. Next comes to your ferromagnetic substances which are strongly attracted by a magnet. Example are iron, cobalt, nickel, gadolinium, dysprosium, etc. But most important thing, the difference between paramagnetic and ferromagnetic substances are that the properties shown by ferromagnetic substances are on a magnified scale, are on a magnified degree as compared to those of paramagnetic substance. This is first property. Second property, when placed in a magnetic field, the lines of force tend to avoid a diamagnetic substance. They tend to avoid a diamagnetic substance, as is clear from this figure. You see for diamagnetic substance how lines of force are go away from the magnet. Whereas for a paramagnetic substance, lines of force passes through the substance. They are not avoiding, as is clear in the blue figure. Magnet is represented blue here, lines of force passing through it are also in blue color. You can clearly understand. But in case of ferromagnetic substances, lines of force tend to crowd into the substance. You see the number of lines of force in figure 3, third figure, in case of ferromagnetic substance, and in case of paramagnetic substance, lines of forces are crowded in ferromagnetic substance into the specimen. Crowd is inside the specimen, but although in case of paramagnetic substances, lines of force penetrate the substance, pass through the substance, no crowding is there, but perfectly lines of force are present here. But in case of diamagnetic substance, no lines of force is inside the specimen. Then third property, when placed in non-uniform magnetic field, diamagnetic substances moves from stronger to weaker field, whereas your paramagnetic substances moves from weaker to stronger with small attraction, weaker to stronger with weak attraction, feeble attraction. But when ferromagnetic substance is placed in non-uniform magnetic field, it moves from weaker to stronger field, but attraction is very, very strong. Then number 4, when a diamagnetic rod is freely suspended in a uniform magnetic field, it aligns itself in a direction perpendicular to the field. Mark, ताकू जदि झुलेब से बुली पड़ो 90 डिग्री को कारण है रिपल्सन. So diamagnetic substance when freely suspended comes to rest perpendicular to the field region is repulsion, but it is not the case for paramagnetic substances. Paramagnetic substances aligns itself. You see the rotation of diamagnetic substance. But paramagnetic substance, suppose it is freely suspended, it aligns itself, you see, along the field, it gets rotated and set itself along the field. Clear from the figure number 2 in second case. But you see here attraction is feeble for your ferromagnetic substance. It is not paramagnetic rod, it is ferromagnetic rod in the third case. When a ferromagnetic rod, it is freely suspended in a uniform magnetic field, it aligns itself in a direction parallel to the field. It aligns itself in a direction, here you see, parallel to the field. Again I back to show this figure. You mark this is a diamagnetic substance. This is a diamagnetic substance placed in a field, uniform field. It gets rotated, comes to rest perpendicular to the field. See to the paramagnetic substance freely suspended, subjected to a uniform field, comes to rest along the field. Magnet and applied field are parallel. You see paramagnetic substance subjected to a field comes to rest suddenly, strongly, just back, again back. Here you see the timing, slowly it is rotating to come to rest to the field, and in the third case it is suddenly rotating to come to rest, just suddenly rotate. It shows ferromagnetic substances are strongly attracted by field, whereas paramagnetic substances are weakly attracted. Now let us see what will happen if the magnetic substances are available in the form of liquid. A diamagnetic liquid, you place it in a watch glass, place that watch glass in a uniform magnetic field, it is observed, it collects, here you see the figure, away from the center with a depression at the center. It collects away from the center when the magnetic poles are closer and collects at the center when the magnetic fields are farther. You mark these two figures. When it is closer, what is the shape of the magnetic liquid? When it is farther, what is the shape of the magnetic liquid? But for paramagnetic liquid, you see, paramagnetic liquid when taken in a watch glass and placed in uniform magnetic field, it collects at the center when the magnetic poles are closer and collects away from the center when the magnetic poles are farther. Then paramagnetic liquid, here generally paramagnetic liquid will show it in a magnified scale, means central heap will be something more height than in case of your paramagnetic region, central portion, the bulging will be something more. So it collects at the center when the magnetic poles are closer and collects away from the center when the magnetic poles are farther. But when diamagnetic substance is placed in a magnetic field, it is weakly magnetized in a direction opposite to the inducing field. Opposite to the inducing field. Magnetization is in opposite direction. But when paramagnetic substance is placed in a magnetic field, it is weakly magnetized in the direction of the inducing field. So it is magnetized in the direction of the applied field. Same thing happens for paramagnetic substance, but it is strongly magnetized in the direction of the inducing field. Paramagnetic substance is weakly magnetized, ferromagnetic substance is strongly magnetized, but both are in same direction. Next distinguishing property between these three types of substances, the induced magnetic moment M, it is a negative value and very small for diamagnetic substance, but that induced dipole moment is small but positive in case of paramagnetic, but for ferromagnetic it is positive but large. Okay. Then eighth property, intensity of magnetization for diamagnetic substance is small and negative, whereas it is small and positive for paramagnetic substance, and For ferromagnetic substance, it is large but positive. And magnetic permeability for paramagnetic substance is always less than 1. It is greater than 1 for paramagnetic substance, but it is much more greater than 1 for ferromagnetic substance. Let us talk about magnetic susceptibility. For diamagnetic substance, magnetic susceptibility K has a small negative value, whereas this magnetic susceptibility, I had denoted it for paramagnetic as Cm, it has a small but positive value. For ferromagnetic, let us also denote it as Cm, it has a small, not small, latter large and positive value. You see, both permeability and susceptibility will have smaller value for paramagnetic, but both have larger value for ferromagnetic. Then the last but not the least property of paramagnetic, what is that diamagnetic substance is that diamagnetic substance does not obey Curie's law. It is independent of temperature. Diamagnetic behavior does not change with temperature, but it is not so for paramagnetic substance. Paramagnetic substances obey Curie's law, that is, susceptibility is inversely proportional to temperature. With the increase in temperature, susceptibility decreases and they lose their magnetic properties with the increase in temperature. Same thing happens for ferromagnetic substance. At a particular temperature called Curie point, they lose ferromagnetic behavior and becomes paramagnetic. You may ask why? According to Curie's law, here you see magnetic susceptibility of a material is inversely proportional to absolute temperature. Okay, so if you equate them, we may find that susceptibility is inversely proportional to T, or susceptibility K will be equal to C by T. We can derive it. I, intensity of magnetization, is directly proportional to H by T. H is field strength, T is temperature. So I by H is proportional to 1 by T, or I by H is inversely proportional to T, we may say, but I by H is susceptibility, and to equate it, we shall introduce a constant of proportionality C, which is called as Curie's constant. So K equal to C by T. So you see, if T is more and more, K becomes less and less, and for a particular value of temperature, value of K coincides with that of paramagnetic substance. So ferromagnetic substance becomes paramagnetic at a particular temperature called Curie temperature or called Curie point. So Curie temperature, it is calculated for iron, it is 1000 Kelvin, and for cobalt it is 1400 Kelvin, and for nickel it is 600 Kelvin. And always remember, if we go on increasing the temperature, at a particular temperature, above that temperature, substance becomes paramagnetic, and if you cool it below that temperature, substance becomes ferromagnetic. So all these are the distinguishing property of paramagnetism and ferromagnetism. You see the graph between I and H by T, how the intensity of magnetization I changes with H by T. So this is all about in this lecture. Thank you very much. Have a happy learning.